and welcome to another episode of Inspired Good Fat Life. We have a really interesting guest today. I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Her name is Sparkle Lindsay, and I mean, who doesn't want to know more about somebody with the name of Sparkle? But before we bring Sparkle in, I just want to remind you about Good Fat Life. It's the camera is just so backwards for me. But anyway, Good Fat Life, our magazine, and you can go to goodfatlife.com and see the latest issue. We have it in print and digital and lots of really fun things coming up. So check out the website. Okay, so that said, I want to introduce Sparkle Lindsay. She's the owner and CEO of Sparkle LLC, and she has got some amazing stories to tell us and inspiration. And oh my gosh, we could talk. Our first conversation I thought was going to be like a quick 15 minutes. And after 2 hours, it was like, oh, okay, I guess we got to go and we'll cycle back. So welcome, Sparkle. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? It was 2 hours. I was in traffic the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, I was too, and it just like flew by, and it was so interesting just to and she's in Colorado, and
Yes.
turns out she knows my baby cousin really well, which
Yes.
that was like such a shocker as well. A small world.
Yes.
So welcome to the show. And so tell us, you have so many things. We have a lot to talk about in a short amount of time. So let's talk about Relentless 2023 and addictions. So,
Yes. Well, I have had a journey I'm 4.5 years sober from alcohol and addiction. And it has been a heck of a journey. And relentless in 2023. When I started 2022, I was at about 3 years or so, and I was really getting into the real world. When you think of early recovery, and for anybody who's dealing with an addiction, early recovery, 0 to 3 years, is so important. And most people don't know that. So I was right at my 3 years, and everything felt like it was crashing down. Okay, I had 4 deaths, everything you could think of happened. And I had to maintain the coping skills to stay sober. I had to lean on my supports and everything. And so once 2022 was over, I ended the year at December 27 with a huge accident where I spiraled out on the highway there, I 225 North, during a snowstorm. And I just knew then that life comes in ebbs and flows. I'm still sober. I can make it today. So
wow.
when I got home from that accident, um, I told myself, what would be my word for 2023? And what came to me was my fight for my business, for my recovery. Sparkle LLC is 3 years old. And my fight for my recovery, I'm 4.5 years in recovery. And so this journey, I have been relentless. And when I hit January of 2023, I have hit the ground running, and I have been relentless with getting into position. And when I say getting into position, there's a lot of different things that need to be revamped in this world right now. And there's a lot of us that have what it takes to get into position and make a difference. And so for me, that's where the relentless to get into position has happened. And here we are coming into 2024, and I have done just that. So definitely excited. And I challenge everyone, be relentless with where you're going, have the intention with what you're doing, and go for it, and I really wouldn't have thought that within this 3 years of my time with my business and so forth, and with my sobriety, that I would have been or gotten where I am right now without being relentless.
Relentless. That's a great word, right?
Yes.
The energy of it, it just, no, it's a great word because you think about it, that's what it takes.
Yes.
It
As
takes,
as an entrepreneur, you have to be relentless because you're going to take some hits. You got to get up. You're going to fall, but ultimately, when you're relentless, it all waves out. It comes in those ebbs and flows.
it. It does. I was talking to about 100 high school students yesterday on
Mm,
financial literacy, their credit
mm,
scores, right?
yeah.
And so many of them want to be entrepreneurs. They want to have their own companies. They want to be this and that. And one of the things that just keeps coming up is, you're right, is just that there's so many things,
Yes.
so many things. And I wanted to, you were one of the things you had sent to me that really stuck with me when we had talked, like it was over a month ago, was about addiction, that we all have addictions.
Yes.
And so, I've been thinking about that, and I felt like this morning the universe was messing with me, and I lost my phone.
Oh goodness.
And so for over an hour, I couldn't find my phone. And the mornings are time is precious, because fortunately I'd gotten up early, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I just said, okay, it's time to go meditate. I set the stove timer,
Right.
and I went and meditated for half an hour, and I just finally, but I realized how addicted I am to that phone,
Right.
because it was just that swirl. There was anxiety, there was stress, there was like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. And so after the meditation, my husband came into the room, and I said, I've lost my phone. And he goes, oh, you left it in the bathroom. And, and
Like,
I had,
thank
lo-
God.
I had looked in the bathroom, right? But
Yes.
it was, and I thought, oh, I'm so glad I get to talk to you today, because I want to hear more about the addictions and how we identify what those are, and like so just talk about that.
Well, the first thing is that a main addiction that has really started to come to, especially since really the pandemic as well, but period, social media and everything else, is phones. Okay, like I have my phones. My phones give me reminders, right? They give us
Right.
all these things every time. If I were to sit my phone here, okay, Sherri, and just talk to you, and it was going off, my dopamine would just be blowing up. Okay, because looking at your phone or the light on your phone is equivalent to taking a shot of alcohol, okay, or taking your next hit as someone who's dealing with drugs. Okay, so if you're having conversations with people, but your phone is right next to you, and they see the light and you see the light, ding, you guys' dopamine is going off, right? So understanding that something as simple as a light from a phone can be an addiction, and bring you right in, right? Versus maybe a chemical imbalance of an addiction, or eating, right? Or gambling, or sex, or addicted to codependency, possibly your depression. There's things that we become addicted to help us create chaos to stay where we're at. And at times we don't even know we're doing it, you know?
So can you give us an example of that, because that is just fascinating, right?
I can give you a lot of examples for me.
I bet you have. So you have such a rich history, and that's with the work that you do as well.
Yes.
So what would be an example? What would be like a typical client thing that you would
A
see?
typical example, I self reflect on myself a lot because it kind of helps me gauge and meet people where they're at. But I have to meet myself where I'm at first, right? So, for a long time, I've been fighting this battle of addiction and drugs, alcohol and drugs, right? And I started to realize that the alcohol and drugs was really just a symptom, and that my core beliefs and what I actually believed were my root of my addictions. And so when I started going back into like working on myself, right? And actually going back into my history and everything else, I realized that my addiction was OCD. I did not think I was good enough. And as I started getting into that part, I started realizing that every part of my OCD showed up. And when that OCD showed up, I'd go, I need a drink.
Mm.
The OCD was my trigger. The OCD was my addiction. So fast forward to about 4 years, I almost said what, 3 years after I get sober, right? OCD's under control. I took the not good enough and replaced it with the positive. I'm doing the best that I can, right? Well, I started school. I'm getting my master's, right? I had to turn this paper in. Okay, Sherri, I'm sitting here. I'm trying to hurry up and get this paper in. It's like right at the deadline. And I'm like, oh, but the period is wrong. And and I'm doing all of this. Okay, you hear my OCD, right? That perfectionism. I'm running through it. I'm running through it. Bam, I send it. Whew, I need a drink. Oh my gosh, it's back. So I had to go back in,
Oh, excuse me.
work on my OCD and understand that that was how I was in high school as well. Everything had to be perfect, right? So it's easy for these things to come back, and you have to clear yourself of those particular toxins in order to feel free, right? So OCD is more of a thing that bothers me more than my drinking and drugging. I don't even think of it. It's now these root things that you have to get to the bottom of. You know what I mean?
Right.
And pull it from the root to move forward.
To move forward. And you had quite a sports background too, didn't you? Where
Mhm.
everything that you were doing is so under the microscope.
Yes, under the microscope. And, we go back to that and fast forward or rewind to being, you know, 21 years old in the middle of my college career and waking up one morning unable to walk. And at that time, my perfectionism still, I believe that my reasoning for not being able to walk for 8 months and being told I'd never walk again due to myasthenia gravis was one of the scariest feelings I ever had. And really, due to my perfectionism and the stress levels, autoimmune can really get you, right? And you're stressing out, and I was trying to fix everything but me. And at that time, I never even cried about being in a wheelchair for that long. What I did is I just fought through it. I put the H on my chest and I handled it, making it where I was going to make it regardless, but I never felt anything. And later on, it really hit me because that's when I started drinking. That's when I started using. There was a lot of lingering things that I never worked through. I never went to therapy for. And so once I walked again, right, played 2 years of college ball, tried out for the WNBA. I mean, I had to actually sit there and cry, probably, I want to say maybe 4 years ago, as I started my journey to recovery, to realize that I was walking again. That's how much I had lost sight. And I was so resilient that I had lost sight of the fact that I'm walking again, you know? And it was a really big eye opener. And all of that came from being the oldest of five, right? Being the fixer, the perfectionist, OCD, graduated with a 4.2 GPA, right? Jumped into corporate America. Now I'm fixing that and fixing companies. I mean, I had lost sight of who I was. I don't ever think I really knew who I was, not
Right.
until now, not until these 4 years where I've become a better version of me by understanding me.
And so do you think that did you ever well, did you ever have a point where you just said something has to give here? I have to do something different. Right?
Yes. Um,
Do
I
we
the
all
fight.
have to go through that?
Yeah, you do. You do. You have to go through this harsh reality of I need help. The greatest gift is asking for help and gaining the support you need to move forward. But most of us think we don't need that, and we all do. And so for me, it was like fixing everything. I didn't know how to say, I did. I actually screamed for help a lot of the times. And a lot of people said, she's Sparkle, she'll fix it, she'll be okay. But I felt like I was in a room full of people screaming as loud as I could, Sherri, and no one was listening. And being a woman in corporate America, the main thing that switched, it changed my life forever. And I have a lot of things that changed my life forever, but this one in particular, I had an employee who came in that day. I was hungover, and I had some good news for him. I wanted to make his day. We found a place for him to have living because he was having a hard time. And I was HR. I was an HR executive for 14 years for three big box retailers. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm like, we're going to make his day. But I also was hungover, mind you. So I did not have anything on me. And I was at that point drinking almost around the clock, but I had nothing on me that day. I was running late. So I was just going with it. And he came up to me and I said, hey, I have some news for you. And he kind of shrugged my shoulder. And And he walked towards the bathroom, and I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I ran to the office to show him get ready to show him the paperwork. I said, I'll just make his day, you know? I walk towards the bathroom and I get this feeling that's just doesn't feel right. And I stand by the bathroom and I wait about 1 or 2 minutes, and next you know, open the door and he shot himself.
Oh my gosh.
And I fainted. And when I came to, the scariest part was the first thing I thought of is when can I get my next hit? And what is going on? Right. And at that point, I thought I was okay. I actually went through their little therapy process. You heard me say their little therapy process. Now I do therapy all the time, right? But at that point, it wasn't anything. But the nightmares, oh my God, I started spiraling, night terrors. And obviously cocaine was my drug of choice as well. So I was taking that, drinking to stay up so that I wouldn't have these nightmares, and then going into work. And at this point, I was like, something's got to give, God, because I'm going to die. I am going to die, and at that point, I wasn't feeling well. I also was diagnosed with lupus. So they were putting me on methotrexate, which is a form of chemo, and I was giving myself shots and rewarding myself by giving myself shots by taking shots. Okay.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, yeah, okay. This is that bright idea you get
Right.
when you're really drinking. And I said, I'm going to die. And I knew then. I got called into the office. And I said, they're going to fire me. I know they're going to fire me. And walked in, and there was a white piece of paper on the table. And my district manager said, turn it over. I turned it over, and it said 125K, 125,000. He said, we're promoting you. I lost it. I didn't cry because I hadn't cried yet. I hadn't cried in almost 13 years, honestly. And I said, this is great, but I'm sorry, I'm going to have to turn it down. I have to take my life back. So he said, what? We'll hold your position. I said, I don't want you to hold nothing. I don't care. I don't want to be here. I have to go take my life back. I said, because something is not right. And you guys know it. So I got up. I was a little intoxicated, so I forgot what door I came through. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, oh, okay, the left door. I walked through the left door. I got in the car, told my ex-fiance I wanted to go to treatment. He said, if you choose to go to treatment, you can never come back. And I sat there for 2 weeks. I drank a lot, and I got in the car. I made it to my grandparents' house one night, 3 o'clock, one morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I knocked on that door and I said, I'm ready. And they woke up, they got in the car, we jumped in, and they took me to treatment. And 4.5 years later, here I am. Changed my
Wow.
life forever. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So answer your question, you did have a hit bottom.
Yes.
And
I will say this, everybody's bottom is different. And your bottom can be so many different things. It could be, I was also in, I was in domestic violence relationship too, right? But what you start to notice is any of your bottoms is just when all of a sudden things just start hitting, bam, 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 and you can't keep up. You're
mm,
keeping afloat, and now it's just pulling you under. And there's this feeling that you feel that's like, this is not going to go okay. This is not all right. It's not going to be okay. You know,
and that could be with anything.
anything. It could
Anything.
be, I've had many people I work with who deal with being a workaholic, and you just start feeling like those walls are crawling in on you, and to the point where you're like, one of my clients, she said it, I should just throw my car over this thing right now because nobody cares if I exist or not. She was
Oh,
so overwhelmed, right?
right.
And then you also have people who are overwhelmed with mental health. I deal with people who have, schizophrenia and bipolar, and no one's listening. And so for them, they just feel like, this is awful. I'm hearing voices, and I'm doing meth to try to stop the voices, and I'm dealing with the co-occurring condition, and no one's listening. The worst part is a lot of us don't feel heard. And so those that don't feel heard, that's a rock bottom in itself,
Yeah.
you
Oh my
know?
gosh. Yeah, I just feel my eyes just tearing
Yeah.
up because um that is heartbreaking. to
Yeah.
to think. And I bet if you ask anybody, we all know lots of people who have that situation. They're
Yes.
not feeling heard.
And the thing is that they're not feeling heard, but there's things that you can feel from that too. As you start to work with people, you start to realize, like, man, this is a rough time for this person, right? This is a rough,
Right.
rough situation, and no one would ever know it. And I think what people don't realize is that when you sit down with someone one on one, especially being a recovery coach facilitator, I sit down with coaches and I sit down with people who are trying to take their life back and just get lost in their moment. When you do, you feel so much, and it changes you as a person, because you find that love and that empathy and that respect for the human race. And most of us, we don't have that. We don't have it anymore, but we all need it. And that's why that help is so important, you know? Sorry.
No, I'm feeling the same way because it is important. And at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, we just want to be heard and seen, valued. One of this morning, because I didn't have my normal meditation, so I was reading in this journal, and it says, "You be you." You know,
Yeah.
you be you. And so I read these pages that I wouldn't have if I was doing my normal stuff, and it was just so powerful about that hey, everybody is unique and unique for a reason, right?
And
Because the world needs our uniqueness.
yes, this morning, I listen to a meditation and then I write the daily meditations for myself. I have 1,650 that I write quotes on my own. And this one this morning hit me, and I said, I got to tell Sherri this. But we talk about meeting people where they're at and meeting ourselves where we're at. But what came to mind for me was meet our moments where they are. And the moment by moment and present moment is so important right now. And a lot of us focus on the past or get stuck in it, or we worry about the future, which hasn't happened yet. But meeting our moments where they are and where we're supposed to be is one of the greatest gifts we can ever have.
Right. And it's not easy to do.
No, heck no, it's not easy to do. The subconscious is pulling you everywhere else, and you're like, I don't even know. You got to be where your feet are, and you got to reel yourself back in consistently and understand it and rework it, you know?
And do. Oh my gosh. So for our listeners, if somebody is saying, I don't know where my addiction is, or I don't know what's pulling me down, because as you said, a lot of this is subconscious. We
Yes.
just don't know. So where would you suggest that somebody start?
Well, I believe that the first thing we have to do is recognize that we have something going on with us. I would really challenge people to take a second to sit with yourself daily and ask yourself how you're feeling. Okay. Most of us ask, how are you doing? But when we can identify with the power of our words through our feelings, it is powerful. And we begin to become who we truly deserve to be by understanding what we're feeling. Once you start to do that, you start to realize if you're not feeling good, if you're feeling sad or depressed, it's time to reach out. Don't take that as, well, maybe I'm just today. Nuh-uh. Every day, check in and ask yourself, every day, every second, every hour, right? Every hour, check in and say, how am I feeling today? Emotions are temporary, not permanent. But as long as you know what you're feeling, you can meet yourself where you're at, and you can actually be mindful and aware of what you need to ask help for and ask help with, right? But what we're afraid to do at times is actually be honest with ourselves. Be honest with yourself. No one is going to know you better than you. And if you are running from you, it's only a matter of time until you're going to run right into you. So go ahead and learn how you are, learn your ebbs and flows, fall in love with yourself all over again, and find the gift of being curious about how you work. right? I
Mm.
feel like we spend, and this is some more information, we spend too much time worried about what others are doing and not focuses on the things that we need to do for us. And if we start with us from the inside out, we can impact so many others because we're also impacting ourselves.
Yeah, it's the old self-care, pull the mask on
Oh,
in
oh,
the
that is,
airplane first, right?
you're gonna give your mask away. That makes
Yeah.
no sense, right? But we all do it. I
But we
did it
do it, yeah.
too, till it almost killed me, and so you got to take a second, take a pause, halt, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. How am I feeling? And once you do that, you're able to say, okay, I'm feeling like this more often than not. Maybe I need to reach out.
You need are there some warning flags or some triggery things like you said, because it's easy to mask those feelings.
There
So,
are warning signs. If you are dealing with compassion fatigue, warning signs will be things like you're always saying you're tired, right? If you're constantly talking to people, girl, I'm tired. Okay. Well, how many times are you saying that a day, right? If you're starting to realize that your work is becoming robotic, that's a sign that you're kind of just going through the motions, you're working through the subconscious, right? If you start to realize you're sleeping consistently and all the time, you're probably battling a little bit of depression. And so understanding like you got to get up, you got to move. It's okay to have a coach behind you saying, hey, get up, we got to go, right? Understanding that little bit of help to push you forward. Another thing that you want to be mindful of is the fact that we do a lot of negative self talk. Okay. One of my
mm,
quotes says, be careful what you say to yourself. You are listening. Why are you listening? Because you tell yourself the things you want to hear. So every day, tell yourself great things. Do yourself a favor. What we do is, as those things start to all pile up, the things that I mentioned, those things start to become bigger things, which then start to bury you, which then it gets too late. And that's when your rock bottom usually hits. Okay, so those signs will tell you, especially if everything is like, it's probably not going to work.
mm,
I really can't stand today. Beautiful day outside, but you can't stand today. You got to ask yourself, how are you leading and how are you talking to yourself?
got it. Well, those are all good things to like pay attention to, right? I
Yes.
and I know in the world that we live in right now, it's pretty heavy.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Hmm.
There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of beautiful things going on too. Right?
The great part about chaos, right, is that now everybody gets a chance to be relentless with getting in position. You get a chance to see everything revamping. If you want to be a part of the education system, go for it. It's revamping. If you want to be a part of the jail systems, go for it. It's revamping. Companies, everything you look at, we're all revamping and things are constantly and they're going to be changing. But the difference is as they change, you got to change with it. And move with the times and be ready for it, whether it's technology, whatever it is, but be relentless with that education if you need to get into position, right? So regardless of all of that, that is how we overcome chaos, is becoming one with it and riding the wave through it.
With a good attitude and relentless.
Yeah.
I love
Oh,
that. Relentless, right?
yeah.
It's
Relentless.
relentless. It's a good mantra. Well, on that, so if people are looking to find, how would people find you and to work with you?
So I'm on all of the social media platforms, as a motivational keynote speaker, an author. My website, sparklelindsay.com, lets you set up stuff. I mean, obviously, I train a curriculum of courses for people who are looking to be great coaches, for Peer Recovery Coach Academy. So you can check out my website. Obviously, my phone number is down there. So if you are battling a crisis at this time or anything like that, please call the crisis hotline if it's something like that. But if it's something that you need to just talk about and you want to see exactly what it is, give me a call and we'll figure out where you fit in your puzzle. Okay?
So I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and giving me so much to think about. And that whole thing with the phone being dopamine, that's like, oh my gosh, got to get
Yeah.
some do some meditating and research around that one.
You're probably gonna now that I said that, every time that your phone goes off, you're gonna be like, "Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh my God." Because when I found it out, I did that. I said, "Here I go again, looking at the phone." You know what I mean?
Right, right. It's like it's an awareness. And oh my gosh. Well, as usual, you always give me so much to think about, and I appreciate you and the work that you do. It's so valuable and so necessary, and I love your energy and enthusiasm and all you bring, and look forward to many conversations in the future.
I know it. I look forward to Sherri. Thank you for having me on today. I truly valued that. Thank you.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, as we like to say, go out and live your good fat life.
Mm.